Most wonderful time of the year. Ding dong ding. My youngest son, Michael, if he sees this, props to you, Michael. I remember those days when we used to sing that song together. Here's the thing. It is the most wonderful time of the year if you're waiting for the king. But you need to know, is there any good pastors you can trust today? Especially if they're telling you not to listen to somebody who smokes. One of my favorite George MacDonald quotes was, "The biggest, saddest thing about the church today is it's trying to keep from people the secret that each person can have a separate personal relationship with God that no one else can know. And it can be greater than anyone else or less, depending on that person, you see." That might have been why he was banned from the churches. I wonder if I could be like him. Anyway, so it's always good to look at what Jesus actually said in Matthew when he was killed as a king and came as a king, and was written by a tax collector who knew about the sin of covetousness. See, Jesus said, "Beware of the sin of covetousness in which many have fallen." Well, you see, when you love money, it's easy. I don't know, but I remember one roommate I had. I don't remember his name, but he got kicked out in a day because he stole $50 out of my room. And I knew he did because I left it in the drawer. And the next day it was gone. And I said, "Hey, bro, I need that $50 that you stole out of my drawer." And he's like, "Oh, bro, I don't know what you're talking about." And I'm like, "Well, you were the only one here. And I didn't take it because I left it there. So that means you must have taken it. And if you can't admit it, well, then I guess you just got to go. Because I can't trust you anymore. That means you're not a roommate of mine. So nice knowing you, bro. Hope you like that $50. And he moved out the next day because he could not admit that he stole it, you see. I don't know if he thought I would punch him or what, but see, the thing about it is that once you've stolen, something happens to you in your heart. And you think, "Oh, I'm better than that person." Kind of like those preachers that preach most people will burn in hell because they didn't come and believe like us. Well, see, this is the one thing that nobody remembers, is that Jesus said a good teacher would become like him. And let's see, what did he start with? He didn't start with any schools, that's for sure, unless you want to talk about the original, like, Jewish whatever bar mitzvah. He didn't go to rabbinic school, if that's what you're thinking of, or any seminary. So that means he became a tradesman, like a carpenter, journeyman. And then he was homeless at 30. And then he was called and knew what to do, but he never went to school, and he spoke with authority. So who teaches like him and who is following him? Because he chose Peter, a fisherman, who I never read was like owning many houses. So if you want a good pastor and you want to get out of the pyramids of Egypt, which I think we should call the churches now, as they're all mummying us up for a bridegroom. Kind of like to cover our souls and bodies because we've been false taught for so long. We might be shaking in our spiritual boots. Well, so if you would like to follow a good pastor, maybe you should check his credentials. And if he tells you he's been to seminary, we'll just walk away. But if you know somebody who's actually studied the Bible, well, I did for 30 years, but I'm not trying to coach anybody or tell you to worship me. I'm just telling you to look in the Bible to find the truth, like the whole book of Matthew. And then you might wake up to see that we are surrounded by dens of thieves with lying, tricky, doctrinal magicians that, well, let's just say Houdini and Madoff just got things started. So, if you'd like to go camping and you live in Orange County, well, I would hit up that Calvary Chapel organization with those hundreds of acres up there, because I never heard how all of that was paid for, so I'm sure they're opening it up for camping for people who would be living like the king to come. But oh yeah, they don't believe in a king, so if they gave you a hard time about it, that would be a funny scene, because that would mean that when Jesus said, if you ask for money and they refuse you, they will have to answer to me, because that's the hardest part of these teachers. You see, every false word they've said, well, it's all been recorded up on that naughty list above, and that 1 Corinthians 3, that's where they find the pillar stuff, truth. And whatever deity of Christ beliefs you had or eternal security, that's where they all go to dust. And you realize that from dust you came and to dust you will return. But when you think you're so special, well, that's an extra dusty dust. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to trust anybody, like right now, you can look at Chuck E. Cheese Baldwin on the Liberty University Fellowship Brainwashing Show, where he just said recently covetousness is a terrible problem. But he said that it's coveting his position and his authority. But see, Jesus had more authority than anyone, and they couldn't figure it out because he wasn't trained right. He was just a carpenter. Well, I'm just a painter, so I tried to follow in his footsteps, but of course, many people call me crazy. But I love it because he did say, beware when all men speak good of you. And that's happening a lot with a lot of people right now. And it seems like so many lies are getting exposed, but like GMOs, people just keep eating the food. Dude, it's all good, man. Can't kill me. It's all good, man. This church makes me feel good. Got a lot of friends here, you know. We're not on the highway to hell, I'm sure. But those Romney planets, they might be there. But the demons, well, I don't know, they might be some of them there. And the rest of them might bow from hell. I don't know, but they'll bow from all over. But I'd rather be on the earth where it says we will do it. So how about you? You want to join the Chargers team, or do you like those dividers and chiefs? Because I tell you what, they got a lot of power, you see. And then if you stick out from the crowd because you don't really care about all these things or love money that much, you know? Because, I mean, if he did come back and 1 Corinthians 3 happened and it went straight to that bema seat in 1 Corinthians 3, and he looked at how much you had in the bank and said, you were waiting for me? Why do you got this much in the bank if you were thinking I was going to come anytime? And you were singing Alleluia, but you didn't remember that part, Michael, row your boat ashore from the doctrines of lies and waves of doctrines that Paul warned about. And now that Titanic has got you so sucked in you can't jump off and you're too deep in, when you could have just rowed that boat ashore. Alleluia. And that says, come, Jesus, come, which means you're ready for your bridegroom. But if you love a bunch of money in your bank and you're trusting on that, or your pyramid, you see, well, I'd say good luck to you. I'd rather be camping out at a local campground by the beach and praying at the water, like where Elijah prayed. when the 100 false prophets, well, they went for a swim, but it wasn't real pretty. You see, that's what the king's gonna do. But this time it'll be the 7 seas of lies, because there's not enough rivers, you see, to cover up all the liars and the lies without killing all the trout that are left. And I grew up in Oregon, so I know about those things, because fly fishing's always been special to me, you see, since I first learned to do it. So as a fly fisherman, you do learn, kind of like praying. You got to spend time, learn how to throw that figure 8, and once you get it down, man, it's like a rhythm. It's almost like those cowboys throwing the rope to get the cow or whatever. And that's what you got to do to be on the Chargers team. You got to spend time alone with the king. And if you can't face that, well, maybe you really need to see if you know him, because it's all about when that day comes and you're right about him and he's about ready to say, I don't know you, from the man on the moon, but hey, I got some men going on the moon pretty soon if you want to go. Get on the right side, and then you won't be so ugly in the show, because see, all the world is a stage. But Et tu, Brute happened, and with the deity of Christ and that Trinity doctrine, well, you see, you made Jesus into a ghost, and he's not a man in heaven. And what you believe in, you might not have looked that deeply into, like that Talmud belief that says that Jesus is boiling in crap. And that's what that's married to, see, with those people who love money, who run those churches. So that's why they're such big Titanics, you see, and great social clubs. I've met some beautiful girls there, but see, that's the thing. You just got to be careful where you go and what you listen to, because this is the time where, truth is getting really hard to find. But if you root yourself in books like Matthew, if you read Matthew and Revelation, you'll have an awakening you won't believe. And the other thing is that why don't you try reading Revelation and thinking about that we are his tribal hearts that are committed to him, and those 2 greatest commandments, and fulfilling them for his kingdom to come, as all will bow. And when we do that, you can read Revelation a lot differently than all these preachers with all these risk games where this country's gonna bomb this. Don't you see the fear-mongering princes that are ruling the churches and what they say? Because they are not like the king, you see. They never were. They just play. So get out of the sandbox, because it's shifting sands, and, well, it could be quicksand soon. And it's good to be on the same page with the king and just worship him now, like Passion Part 2. And he's in the sky just like Santa, and he's got the naughty list, and it should be all good. And then when you read Revelation, you'd be like, whoa, maybe he's more mad with the fake church than the rest of the world, you see. Because if they've been lying thieves and trying to teach people God, imagine, like he said, if the light in you is dark, how great is that darkness? Well, that's the thing, you see, because there's a lot of dark light right now, and it's not very light at all. But if you just spend time in the Word, then you sharpen your eyes and your ears, and then when you hear these mashed potatoes that are all over-salted with fake salt, you can see that there's covetousness in there. And he's trying to teach it, you see, because the whole idea of it is that we are so special. That's why we're blessed. That's why I got bank in the money, money in the bank. But the rest of these people, well, they just aren't quite right. And that's why they should just burn up. And I'm with God on that. See whose God that really is and where that might come from, because it's kind of like Lucifer, I'll just take over, God. You can just burn up. So beware what you believe and who you listen to, because there's not very many preachers like my king out there, and that might be why they play shuffleboard with the word king. Or with the word homeless, because they don't want to be. See? That's their real heart. It's always been money and fame all along. So if you want to know where is Hollywood right now, it's the pastors. They're the Hollywood, you see. It's all been a show all along. But the curtain's being drawn, and what you see depends on how much you enjoy that Titanic, because it's a beautiful ship and it's got a lot of money on it. But there's someone that got off it before everybody else.